Hello, all about projects and Ratka. And I'm laughing because I really hope that I'm not going to re-record this video for a million times. But, well, of course, I caught myself in action. I changed the slides slightly and yeah, I lost myself in my own train of thought. So, sorry, a little bit laughing at the beginning. Why today's video? So, my amazing introduction, which I had just 5 minutes ago, is lost. The main reason why I opened this channel was to share my webinars. Many people during COVID and even later on attended them, and some of them just missed it and wanted to have some place where I would share them. But because I thought, they were a little bit different products, they were meant to be interactive. So there was lots of asking, are you there? Is anyone there? So I thought it could be much better to prepare new videos. And I kept on thinking about this since I finished my project report. And because I always want to prepare really good products, so I kept on changing concepts and preparing new presentations. But it's end of February and I haven't finally made any video. So I thought, okay, if I am going to start with this activity, I just have to take my old PowerPoint presentations and start to use them and start sharing information, because this is not about perfect PowerPoints or perfect videos. This is about the experience which I would like to share with you and the inspiration which I would like to give you in case you are in the situation that you are asked or you want to apply for project funding. You have amazing research ideas, just like many early stage researchers do. You have enthusiasm, but you don't have any practical skills, and no one has ever guided you in this process of project application writing. And however gifted and creative we are, it's always nice to understand some basic principles. So this is a bit like when we read, it's automatic already, but someone had to teach you letters and syllables and how it all works together. So this is what I do in these in this, well, kind of series of trainings. I just share the basic principles, the basic cornerstones of what we need to understand if we want to be successful in our project writing, project managing, and so on. So today is the first topic, and the first topic is really like understanding the alphabet. So I'm going to talk today about project management. And the reason why I decided it's Monday, it's almost end of February, is and it's a good time to do it, is because finally, after a month of, well, really dark weather and, well, rainy days, we got new snow in Liberec, the place where I live, and it's sunny. So I thought, okay, let's celebrate this wonderful, well, our way of first days of spring with doing something useful and recording a new video and talking about these basic principles and basic things which we need to understand if we want to apply for funding. So I apologize for the quality of my PowerPoint presentation. As I said, I just reuse what I have prepared before. It's only for me to help me to navigate my thinking, because, it's really good when you don't spend too much time by giving too many practical examples, which I tend to do. So these PowerPoint presentations always help me to stay focused, because this is really important, just to focus on the minor principles at the beginning so that they are really kind of well established in your mind. And once we go further with project writing, you might already understand a little bit more. So this really has helped me during my career, these basic concepts and understanding them really well. Because what will happen later when you apply for funding, the trouble is that a majority of funding agencies, majority of grants, use slightly different language for the same concepts. So what I considered to be very helpful was when I understand the meaning of these concepts project management work with. And once you understand these meanings, it doesn't matter how they call them. If it's output, if it's deliverable, if it's product, no problem at all. I know what kind of role these concepts have in my project planning, in my project thinking. And that's again the reason why I summarize these basic principles into this presentation, into this training, hopefully to help you and to provide you, as I probably said, or I said it in this previous introduction, with an inspiration on how to approach this big challenge of applying for funding and trying to be successful in advancing your research and your research career. So let's jump into my PowerPoint presentation. So it will be a little bit of fun, a little bit of all drawing. So I really apologize to any people who have strong design thinking or strong feeling about design. This is going to be a bit chaos, but it's meant mainly to be a kind of guideline for me, not to talk about too many things and not to talk too much as well. So already the name of the presentation is quite clear. I'm not going to cover absolutely everything related to project management. This is really purely focused on those principles from project management that you really need to understand and are crucial when you want to apply for funding. And there are two aspects related to this understanding. Number one, so that you will be understood better by your evaluators. So that's the first important thing. And the second important thing is that you really know what you do when you plan your project, because people sometimes tend to mix words together because they think they sound cool and I should talk about this or that. But if you don't know exactly what is the meaning behind certain words, you can create for yourself quite a bit of troubles later when the project is selected to be financed. And again, I promise that I'm not going into too many details. So I will talk about these possible troubles when I will talk about writing project proposals and implementing projects based on the contract you have with a funding agency. So again, I'm going to talk about project management, but with the view of using these tools in project writing only. So this is not related to actually implementation of the project, but you affect the implementation of the project by what you write. So this question I used in my webinars. So I kept it here because to ask yourself, what is your experience with project management? Many people say, I don't have any, but I doubt this. We all do project management on a daily basis. But we kind of do it intuitively. We don't think about it. We don't give the processes related to our everyday projects those sophisticated names that project management language uses. But we have objectives, we work with aims, we work with work breakdown structure. Only probably when you go on holidays, you just don't prepare the work breakdown structure and work packages, and you don't give list of tasks, or sometimes you give list of tasks to your family, what is important to be done before you go somewhere, what you are going to do during your holiday time, so that your holiday time is going to be really happy and you will end up happy ever after the holidays as well, and not divorced or somewhere in some kind of argument. So this all we do on a daily basis. So you all are already masters of project management. What we need to do when we start to apply for funding is to become conscientious, I think is the proper English word, of this whole process. We need to name it, we need to categorize it, and we need to organize it in a presentable way. So this is later our project proposal. So what we do, we need to understand what tools we have. We need to understand everything about our problem. We need to understand a lot about the funding agency because they give us limits. I will talk about this today. And yeah, later we need to organize all of our ideas into a kind of legible concept. So we need to turn it into a story that is going to use both language and some kind of visuals, some graphs, some tables, some structures. But all of this, even though it looks like a picture, it just tells a story about how you plan to turn your project idea, to turn your vision into something that will live, that will be alive later. So what would be the answer to this question? As I said, we all have experience with project management. So don't be afraid. It's not challenging. It's only about understanding the new words. Probably it's new vocabulary. It sounds like something that might be challenging, but it's not. So the best knowledge resources on project management, just like most of us, I started to attend trainings. I started to read a lot of books. What can you see? There's one book, another book, and yet another book. I have piles of books everywhere. But as you see, some of them are a little bit more used, with a little bit more stickers inside. Some of them are a little bit less used. And some of them were marvelous. So I thought I would save you again a lot of time, and I would recommend you one book which I thought was incredible in terms of, it wasn't long, so it was something like this, just a brochure, kind of brochure, and it was so comprehensive, so clear to understand, clear to follow when you read it, even as a lay person, as a newcomer. And I think I have in the next slide is the book which I wanted to recommend you. The trouble was that I couldn't find it this morning, but this is another wonder of our mind. If you deeply focus on something, it is stored in your subconscious mind. So even though I couldn't remember the name of the book this morning, I could remember that the author works at Kent University. So it was quite easy to find the reference to this book so that I can really share it with you. So there are two main resources I would recommend you if you want to get basic orientation in the problematics of project management. So one of them is this book, and another one, I think you're going to laugh now, but it's a norm. It's norm which has a number 10,006. So it's the famous ISO, which normally we have connected with a lot of paperwork. But when I came across this norm, I thought, wow, finally the language is very simple, clear, not too many words around, and they were just explaining the concepts. And from that time on, I always, whenever I talk about project management, I just return to this norm and to this one book, because they really were so simple, just like books talking about alphabet for kids in the kindergarten or primary school. So is here the slide? No. So, well, there was the introduction talking about written resources. So here is the marvelous book. I think this is not waste of money. So if you have some budget left, or if your library has some money, I really would invest money into this one, because as I said, simple language, but it still gives the project writing to kind of connection with the rest of the research world. So I really appreciated this work. So thanks to Jacqueline Aldridge, who, if you check her profile, she worked ages as a support for researchers in terms of project proposal writing. So she could see what was really useful in this everyday process. So wonderful book, which I really think is not waste of money if you invest your money in it. And well, when it comes to norms, majority of universities have access to norms. So again, well, I wouldn't read it completely, the norm. It was just a couple of pages. Just when you are not certain what is the meaning behind the concept. So for this is the norm really wonderful. And to tell the truth, I could do the whole day training just with one definition from this norm, because it was such a wonderful tool that navigated my own thinking when I wanted to talk about the whole problem of project proposal writing and project management tools we need for that. So generally, because I said what we do now with project management is that we use it for proposal writing. So this is just a basic structure of what happens in our daily life. So we have an idea, we find a funding or authority, funding agency that would be interested in what we do. Then we write project proposal, and this project proposal is being evaluated by real human beings, evaluators, people who have some specific expertise, but quite frequently they are not expert in what you do. So you really need to be aware of the fact that the better you are able to express your project concept and your project idea, the more you increase your chances to be evaluated as excellent and selected for funding. Again, this is something I will cover later, but the fact that you are seen as excellent still doesn't mean that you will get money, because money is unfortunately a limited resource, and there is always certain amount of money allocated for every calls for proposals. So it may sometimes happen that there were so many wonderful and excellent project proposals submitted for a particular call that even though you are almost perfect with your project, that you got 98% out of 100, but unfortunately, there is not enough money to finance all the excellent projects. So then there are a lot of other selection criteria, and I would say fair funding agencies always make very transparent the process of how they select projects to be funded. So there is a set of evaluation criteria, but it's also always important to be aware of the fact how the project will be selected for funding, because then some evaluation criteria have a higher value for the funding authority. So then again, when I write my project, I need to focus on particular parts of my project and give them the good information, good structure, really convincing arguments. But as I said, this is something that I'm going to cover in a separate workshop, because otherwise this would be never ending, and I wanted to focus on project management today. So, but when I return to this picture, there's important thing, what you need to be aware, and I have already mentioned it, but you might not notice the importance of it. The trouble is that what I write today and apply for funding, I will live with this text the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years even. Just imagine if I now write a project, let's say the deadline is tomorrow, but most of the times it takes about 6 or up to even 1 year before the projects are evaluated and selected for funding. And then if my project is planned for 3 or 4 years, then I should be a kind of visionary and think about the period 5 years from now on and see my outputs in that period. And we all know with just the recent social changes, how challenging this might be sometimes. So from this perspective, you now see that the value of writing good, convincing, but flexible project proposal, that is really an art. So this is really something like writing a good novel. We all can write a novel, but most of the time, who would read it? Probably our family. They would say, okay, lovely novel, but we need something that would really be successful in wider world. So let's go further. And just like I said at the moment, the fact that you won the money doesn't mean that you are going to be happy with that money in the next 4 or 5 years. It might be pretty challenging if you were not cautious with writing your project proposal. But I don't want to warn you also, or kind of discourage you from being active. But what is important is just to be aware of the fact that you are responsible for your own future by just deciding how your project proposal is going to look like. So it's kind of amazing art. It can be fun as well, but it is important to understand like the basic alphabet, so that you know where you can allow yourself the flexibility and where you need to be very specific. So this is what I have already mentioned, and it will happen to me a couple of times that I will see a PowerPoint slide and I thought, oh, I was already talking about it. So This is a list of words and concepts and topics we are going to talk about today. So these are our building blocks with which we are going to create our project story and our project proposal. So we definitely need to understand the difference between aim and objectives. We need to understand what is work and what are activities, what are outputs, milestones, risk, deliverables, Gantt chart, simply not to get lost in this. So this is going to be step number 1, understanding these concepts. Step number 2 is that you are aware of the fact that, okay, I understand the concept, but the funding agencies can sometimes use different words to name these concepts. And this is again the reason why it's important to understand the meaning, because then you don't mind how they call, whether they call objectives or some kind. Sometimes they even interchange. They use the word aim for what is seen in the norm as objectives, and sometimes they will talk about higher aim and so on. So quite frequently you might get lost in the language. If you understand the concept, it will be your kind of navigation line for your thinking. So let's start with, I think, well, this is again example of where we are heading with this organized thinking. So probably I should get rid of this PowerPoint presentation slide, but well, it's there, so let's go on. So, but the wonderful definition from the norm. So first of all, we will start with defining what is a project. So this sentence is a quotation from the norm I have mentioned, and it says, and you know, I just couldn't nail it better. It describes project as a unique process consisting of set of coordinated and controlled activities with start and finish dates undertaken to achieve an objective, conforming to specific requirements. And that's all. That's wonderful. If you really focus on the meaning of every single word, it tells everything about project. So when I read this, I just had to admire people who were able to express this idea so precisely. So let's start with the first thing, unique process. The fact that every project is unique is truth. So if I start to write my project today, it will be slightly different than if I start, even if it was just me writing, let's say, individual project like postdoctoral fellowship for some of the Horizon Europe calls. My mental state will be different. I will choose different arguments for presenting my project story. So just check it. Even though if you resubmit the same proposal, people change, conditions, external conditions change. So really, every project is unique. So again, what can I learn from this? So number one, many people tend to take their excellent project proposals that were not financed and simply resubmit them somewhere. You can't do this, because it will be new evaluators, it will be new external situation. So, well, you might use 95% from the former text, but still, you need to analyze the recent state of the art and adjust your former project proposal to the recent moment. Otherwise, suddenly you might discover that your excellent project would be evaluated as a good one. So you think, well, everything is perfect. It's still the same as what I have submitted, what I submitted a year ago. And suddenly the quality reduced. I didn't change anything, but the environment changed. So that's important to understand. The next word, process. What is process about? Think about what is process about. It talks about, when you visualize the word process in your mind, it's about changing. It's about turning one thing to another. So it's about this transformation of something that was not existing before you started to work and creating something new. So this kind of energy by which you transform something into something else, that's a process in simple words. So I'm going to use a lot of simple words, and I will try to compare all this language to our everyday life so that we really try to understand it together. And again, if I did some mistakes, please apologize. I just try to focus on the idea of a person who have never been trained in this, or was trained but was lost, didn't understand, it was math, and you just thought, why am I supposed to learn all this? So I'm trying to tell you why. So process. And this process consists of as you see, set of activities. So there is a difference between a process and activity, and the only difference I would say is in scale, in scope. So process you can compare to, if we use the parallel between process and activities with timeline. So process could be something like a year, and activity could be like a month within the year. So it's just the level. But activity is again about transformation, about the change. Something is being done within the frame of activity. It's in the nature of the word. So again, wonderful help is sometimes just a simple dictionary. Go to Merriam-Webster dictionary and just take the word activity, put it there, and you will see in even plainer language, they will explain you what it is about. I know it sounds crazy, but it really, really helps to understand meaning of words. Because once you have good images in your brain related to what this word talk about, it will help you to organize your thinking and be better in expressing your thoughts. So this was process and activities, change. But as you see, I have highlighted some other words in red, and these activities are coordinated and controlled, which means that you can't create a good project process if you don't coordinate activities, small activities between each other. So I will talk about this in a separate part of this presentation. So coordination and control is important. And we all know that, we think, okay, control is not a good thing. Well, if you want to get somewhere, you need to navigate yourself somehow. So this is already coordination and control in practice. It just sounds sometimes a bit boring, but we do it. We do it daily, even if we go on this holiday project. The next thing that is important to remember when it comes to project, it always has start and finish date. That's again important, because I could have my whole life project, but to apply for funding for, let's say, 3, 4, 50, 60 decades, depends how many time we were given, it could be challenging. But when we plan a project, we most of the times focus on shorter periods of some time, which we can still imagine. Of course, things will go differently, but most of the times you are going to plan your projects for periods between 1 or 3 or 4 years. This is still kind of manageable time frame, and we always have to focus on what is at the beginning of our project, what is the state of the art at the moment when we start with our project, and what we foresee as a result at the end. And then, and this is a project planning, we imagine what has to be done, what kind of big process has to be implemented in order to achieve this change at the end of the project. And then we think again what we have available for resources and what kind of money there is available. And then we try, just like, well, this is a little bit like cooking. So this is, you see the final dish, and you know how high budget you have and what kind of equipment you have in your kitchen. And then you imagine, well, how can I make this dish? Do I have all resources available? Let's imagine that I'm going to bake some cake, but I don't have any oven in my kitchen. And this is exactly what we do in our projects. If I find someone who wants to finance my oven, I can say, okay, I can bake a cake because I don't have an oven, but the funding authority is willing to finance it. So you will see, and I will talk about these restrictions later, and this definition also mentions specific requirements. So even these restrictions might be seen as specific requirements. And that's again why I said that I could happily spend the whole day or even a week training just looking at this one sentence, and it would navigate my mind into all sorts of directions that are related to project management and that are important to consider when I plan my project. So I talked about start and finish days. I already mentioned that objective and specific requirements. So these are sections which I'm going to cover in the rest of my presentation. So before you start to plan any project, don't restrict yourself with something like this definition. Just be free and think about the problem. So this is, again, a kind of art. Many people tend to get organized from the very beginning, but this is not the way how we work when we create good projects. We need to give ourselves a bit of space and just work with plain questions. Questions like why, what, who, when, and where. So these ordinary questions, if you are parents, so you know that small kids always ask what, why, where, who. But we somehow tend to forget how powerful these questions are. So again, these framing questions, and whenever you look into theory, so this is what I'm talking about, might sound like, well, I have invented some kind of crazy structure for this training, but everything comes from a lot of trainings and loads of knowledge I try to obtain on my own professional journey. And these framing questions are really wonderful because they will help you to understand those specific requirements, what is available, what you can do, what your colleagues can do, what your institution is expecting of you. So these framing questions are important because suddenly it is like they define you, the space in the frame of which you are going to locate your project. So one, just like an area, location is being defined by the funding authority. But if I want to think about my smaller project, because most of the times you are not going to fulfill everything this funding agency wants to achieve, you will just fulfill a tiny bit. You are going to help by your drop to achieve something bigger. So your project is going to be this drop. So you need to now understand what limits your own drop of project idea. And these framing questions are really important. So use them at the very beginning. I could show you the chaos that is around me, because the walls in this room I always use to put my ideas out of my head and surround myself with the concepts I'm considering at the moment. And it helps me to organize my thinking better and frame it much better towards the project which I want to implement. So these questions, these basic questions, always start with why are you doing something? So I, again, have to admit, my why has been, just like for many people, a driving force in my career. I will talk about it in other videos, but when I started, I was hired to become a consultant for international research projects. And you ask yourself, what does it mean? Same with me. I didn't know what it meant. So I tried to find out what is expected of me. It's very vague. So I just needed to give it such meaning that would be in tune with who I am and how I see quality of work and quality of my working life. So throughout the time, I defined my why I am doing it. My main mission has always been to help early stage researchers who are quite frequently kind of overlooked, but expected to do a lot of things without that much specific help. And so I always wanted to help these people to grow. And, it always drove me towards what kind of projects I would like to apply for, what kind of activities I would like to implement. So it really helped me to understand this. Plus, it navigated me towards other questions. So this was my why you would be doing it. But then you ask yourself, okay, what has to be done in order to achieve this? And part of this this question for me was, okay, I need to become a good consultant. I need to be myself a good project manager. So I started to learn, and because I'm quite practical human being, so I read some things, but I just practiced a lot just to see what works, what doesn't work, and what kind of experiences you might get. So why is really important. So whenever you apply for funding, ask yourself why I am doing this. Do I want to learn something? Do I want to get the money? Do I want to advance my career? Why? And be honest with yourself, because once you are honest with yourself, again, your mind will be your friend in this world, which is full of, I could show you also a lot of papers that are around me, which is full of complex idea, complex processes, and it's sometimes difficult to navigate yourself through it. So if you can answer your own why at the beginning, very honestly, why I want to apply for this funding, why? For money, for experience, for collaborating with my amazing colleagues, for investigating this idea I'm so interested in, that I'm sort of kind of bursting with curiosity, because I just need a bit more money to understand it better, because I'm probably going to discover something amazing. So once you know this, it will help you. It will be your greatest friend in this whole crazy, sometimes crazy world. So really, the art of asking a good question is so important. And we sometimes forget to step back and just think. And even, people, when they look outside of there's a window, by the way, when you look outside the window to the skies, your brain works for you. So let this amazing machine sometimes work for you. We don't have to do everything consciously. Even if you absorb information and you know why you are doing it, your mind will later subconsciously come out with some interesting solutions. And this is not, again, just out of my own head. I kept on reading a lot of things about how our mind works and how, amazing people in research achieved what they did, people like Einstein. And suddenly you see that they were really open to this alternative way of doing things, that they simply sometimes gave space to their mind just to wonder, and later on they were rewarded by amazing ideas. So good questions, because your mind is constantly going to be busy with this question: why am I doing this? What is so important for me to achieve? And knowing exactly answers to these questions will also help you to define your projects better. Because sometimes people tend to include a lot of activities because they get money for these activities. But as I said, when I had that big picture, when someone who got the money was suddenly lying in the mud and people were kind of laughing at his situation, really sometimes getting too much money can also become a problem. So really be careful. It's a game, but it can be sometimes a dangerous game, particularly if you don't have a big institution supporting you. If you are a team leader, it is really specific. We will talk about this also later. So questions. Okay, once I know answers to my questions, I can start to arrange them according to limitations given by the project I intend to apply for. So now I go to all these weird words that I need to use when I want to express and organize my free thinking into something doable. So concepts number one are words, aim, and objective. And we really need to understand these two words in order to write efficiently and think efficiently. What I could do, I think there are some animations probably related to this slide, so this is going to be a bit dangerous step. But your aim is always, and again, whatever they will call it later, there will be always one concept that will ask you about your why. Why is important to do something? And objective is always measurable. It will be always very specific, and it will refer to what has to be done in order to achieve this change I want to achieve in my why. So let's say my objective could be to create some kind of mobile unit that would clean water from any kind of resources and turn it into drinkable water. So that's an objective. It's quite, I could add how much money it could cost. I could add, well, how long it would take, all sorts of characteristics I could add to this device. The more I add, the more specific my objective is, and the better it will navigate you towards what has to be done in order to achieve this. But you ask yourself, why are you doing it? You might be doing it because it's profitable, so that's your why. Or you might be doing it because I want to help people in countries where their, I don't know, mortal rate, or where they have a lot of illnesses because people lack clear water resources. So, and when you start to think about like this, then suddenly you see that just by creating this device for cleaning water, the impact, that's the word you will hear quite frequently, is suddenly not going to be just the fact that people will get the drinkable water for low price, but you will also, by this device, reduce the number of deaths. You might, in long term, reduce the number of severe illnesses, and so on. So, you know, it's like putting your smaller objective into a wider picture. Why I am doing something, that's my aim. I want to help these people to live healthier life. So you see, the aims are not going to be measurable most of the times. They are going to be more like a vision, why I am doing something. So there's always some kind of why, which in your project proposal, you will express in this, let's say, less specific words. It will be more about your philosophical approach, why I am doing something, because I want to make people live happy lives. And living happy lives means that you won't be ill, that your dear ones are not going to die. Sorry that I have selected such example, but it just came out of my mind. But when you talk about objective, it will be very specific, and it will describe something, the change that you will get, the specific change you will get at the end of your project. So what I will get after the 3 years of my project implementation. And be again careful, because this definition doesn't have to be, in the case, for example, of this equipment, probably there are many of them in the world already, but probably they are also not that cheap to produce. So it doesn't mean necessarily that by the end of the product, you have to have new equipment ready for individual people to be distributed, but you might, as a result, have, for example, a draft design, a tested concept. All this can be your specific objective. Or even if you at the moment apply for some kind of just doctoral project, and you just want to get money for literature review. So even the fact that you will know the state of the art in relation to this particular problem, that might be the objective. But you say, okay, I will read at least 100 articles, 300 articles, and then I am able to do some kind of summary of what is the state of the art of research in this area. So your objective can be anything, but your objective always has to be specific and measurable. They even use a abbreviation like SMART. But you know, the more adjectives, the more characteristics you add to your, let's say, output that will represent your objective, the fact that your objective is fulfilled. So the better it will navigate you in thinking what kind of processes and what kind of activities need to be done in order to achieve this particular specific change. So the main difference, so let's have a look if we have some animation. So there is a relation, that's the most important thing. So what I need to do at first, I need to understand my why. So what is the aim? and the objective is part of it. So just like when I mentioned my own career aim, I wanted to help to provide good quality service, and I selected some specific target group that felt the nearest to my belief system. And then, okay, that's why you are doing this. But then you ask yourself, okay, what has to be done in order to achieve this? And there are going to be lots of those what's. You always just select a part that you can achieve at the moment. So there will be lots of objectives on your way towards achieving your bigger aim, your vision. So that's the main difference. But if I know what is my objective, it will help me, if I know what is my aim, it will help me to understand what kind of objectives I need to fulfill in order to move further towards achieving my aim. Well, so my aim will always define something that is called strategy, and there is a huge science behind it. Strategy, in simple terms, it's how you are going to achieve something. So objective is always going to be what you want to do. Your aim is going to be why I am doing it. And your strategy is how. It talks about mix of actions. It talks about how they are organized in processes and so on. So this is quite practical, how I'm going to do something. So strategy is about how. Okay, so now we have already covered 3 simple questions: why, what, and how, and replace them by the sophisticated terms that will be used in our project management thinking. So whenever you are lost, always think which of these words talk about what, which of these words they ask me to talk about in the call for proposals, talk about why, and which ask me about my how. So always when you write project proposals, try to simplify the complex language into, again, simple questions like why, like what, and like how, because it will help you to navigate your thinking. So here is a summary. I will keep it for a while on a board. So you see, aim is always a kind of concept you want to work on in a long term. So it is really difficult to measure it. And yeah, but it's kind of like driving force. It's the energy that moves your activities further, while objective is refers, as you see in the definition, to a desired specific change you want to achieve in a certain, as you see again, certain specific time period. And now, as you see, when we talk about objective, it reminds us a bit of that definition of a project. So objective and project are really, really closely related to each other. So I hope that by now the difference between aim and objective should be clear. And again, I don't want to use the word warn you, but you should just be aware of that quite frequently funding agencies use words and they just change them. Like they talk about objectives and they want to hear things related to your aims, and then they talk about objectives and they use word aim. And so that's the reason why you need to understand the meaning and the concepts. And then it doesn't matter whether they call aim donkey and objective giraffe. You don't mind. You just take their words and you will talk about these concepts using their words, because also their evaluators are going to be trained in their words. So it's important that you simply adjust your expression of your thoughts to the language that is being used by funding authority. So, okay, first of all, and this is this brainstorming part when you just, okay, you name why you want to do things and what you think is important to be done in order to achieve your why, your aim. So then you finally move to the third stage and you start to think how to do it. So in my case, it was, okay, we wanted to provide our clients with more knowledge on project management. And at the beginning, we thought, what can we do? Okay, what can we do to help our clients to be more successful with their project application? So we thought, okay, let's provide them with trainings on project management, because we thought, okay, it could be wonderful. It was expensive and people didn't have money. So we thought, okay, that could solve the problem. But you know, the trouble is that sometimes you don't know that if what you think is the best thing to do at the moment really is the best thing to do. And just by doing it, you test your idea. And this is, again, what the projects are about. Sometimes you are just going to test some kind of concepts. So I have to say that in my career, I could see the stage when we thought that we could help our clients by providing them with trainings. And we thought, okay, it's not about money that much. So then we decided that the problems were somewhere slightly different. So we started to implement different activities. And actually, at this stage, you see that I'm doing videos for YouTube. So what? So it's still about helping people to get better in project proposal writing and be more successful in their research career. But now I moved into another what? So I'm sharing my trainings online because, you know, I became free by the fact that I'm not financed by a project anymore. So I don't have to fulfill some kind of indicators. So this is, again, the restrictions I was given by my project. And at the moment, I'm restricted by what? By time, by technical resources, by space. Yeah, but, you know, so you understand the restrictions. You still have your big why. But now my what is changing. I will focus more on this YouTube channel because it is something for free. I don't need to apply for funding and I won't have that many restrictions. So I can just provide people with learning platform where actually I also don't have to be the only one who shares the experience. There are so many people across the globe who can share their experience with how to be successful in research career and how to apply for funding. So this is the reason why I opened this channel. I called it All About Projects because it is going to be all about projects. This is something we have to live with in our research life and research environment. And I'm going to use a different strategy. The how is going to be slightly different. So I'm not going to organize real life events, but I can still invite people to this online environment and they will share with you the wonderful things they have discovered about what it is to work as a researcher and how to be successful with this career. So you can see just on this YouTube channel, me implementing lots of sub-projects that are still related to my big why. So even though I promise that I'm not going to give that many practical examples, but I always like during my trainings, you know, to compare something to the situations we live through. And as you are probably by now still watching this video, it means that you are interested in this channel and you think that there is something I could share with you. So I thought, okay, let's also give you examples from my own practical life, how I live with project management and how I fulfill these aims, objectives, and how I work with these simple questions: what, why, and how. So how, at the moment, I'm recording myself. I really love looking into cameras, really not at all, but I just try to overcome it because, you know, this is an amazing, efficient way how to do something. So let's learn, let's go on. Okay, so once I understood about these three questions, so the core questions are always why, what, and how. Then I start to ask further, okay, where I'm going to apply it, when, and with whom. And again, if I return to the example of this particular project of this YouTube channel, so, okay, at the moment, I'm sitting in this office, which I used during the COVID. There is a background behind me, which I used during the COVID. By the way, you might see that I have updated. This was one thing that I did during the COVID, okay? We were forced to change everything what we did, but I thought, okay, let's keep it a bit human and let's keep it a bit fun. So I started to use these backgrounds as well. Anyway, so I'm broadcasting from here. And again, if you recollect what I said at the very beginning about that I finally forced myself to record something because otherwise I could be waiting ages and some other ideas and some other videos would come before these training ones. So I thought, okay, now is the time. I have materials ready. I know what to talk about. And if I try to polish it, it will take again 3, 4, 5 weeks. And then probably I won't feel like it. So the best time for this video was just today. I had free time and I thought, okay, let's do it. Okay, in this case, who is just me. So, but when you start to think about your project, it will be your colleagues, it will be your members of your network, it will be either your institution or your partner universities. Some of you might even work for more institutions. So I have lots of colleagues who work both, for example, at Academy of Sciences and at some university. And sometimes when you start to think about the colleagues and the environment and even like administrative support in your institution. So you decide, okay, I know that there's a lot of bureaucracy in this institution, while in our Academy of Sciences Institute, it goes really easy or smooth. So, well, let's apply with my institution, my home institution, or my whatever. So again, you need to understand and get as much information as possible to your subconscious mind, because then you can make better choices for your project. And these simple questions, just just do the brainstorming. Okay, where can I broadcast my videos? I could do it here. I was already considering some other spaces, but I don't have money, so I can't rent something. I can't travel that much because I have colleagues who have empty spaces, but they are not in my hometown. So you see, this is a kind of brainstorming again. So part of my journey, part of my project journey is answering this question, where I'm going to apply my project. And it will be individual, it will be unique for all of us. So again, I should slow down. Am I speaking? And well, please use the comment section if you really did it with me so far, and if you still listen to me, and if you have any questions, or even if you just want to share what kind of project you think about at the moment. It will really, you never know what it opens. It might happen that I know someone who might help you. It might happen that I know something that might help you. So you just don't risk anything by doing things. You usually risk when you are not open and don't ask questions. Yeah, but it's individual strategy, again, strategy, how you want to achieve something, how you want to be successful with your research career. But I think asking questions is never wrong. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so now I talk about plain ordinary things that will help us to navigate our thinking in this complex world that works with slightly different language and concepts we sometimes don't understand. But never forget that whenever you get lost in project management theory or in the course, return back to these questions. Whenever, usually when you look at the project templates, there's big language and they talk about strategic things. So just ask yourself questions about every single word. Even, do I know what does this mean? Do I know what it is? And if you say yourself honestly, I don't know what are human resources skills, or what are research skills I need to know I need to have to be a successful researcher. Just an example again from postdoctoral fellowships. What are the skills I am supposed to have? And then I start to think, okay, what kind of skills I have? Can I talk about skills? Can I categorize them? You all are researchers, so this organized thinking is close to you. So again, take the fact that you don't understand something as the proper challenge to stimulate your thinking in order to come out with a good project idea and a good project proposal. So it's like a puzzle. In a way, it's a game, but you need to give your brain space to be creative and to be able to come out with some nice solution, some interesting solution. And what many people do when it comes to project, they just start to write from the very beginning. They start to reply to these dull sections of the project templates. But the trouble is, these templates, they use this abstract language and the dull language, which we don't understand, just because they give you space for interpretation. That's the logic of this all. They want to achieve something with the public money or whatever the funding agency provides researchers with money for anything. They have their own objectives, but that's the logic of programs. They just can't see what all can be done in order to achieve what they want to achieve with that money. And by providing us, someone who applies for funding, with this space of abstract language, it gives us opportunity to find our space within the call, within the rules. And of course, there always will be rules, but they won't be too strict. Like, for example, a law or accounting, there is always going to be some kind of flexibility. And this flexibility is there because of a simple logic. If you give people flexibility, they will become creative and they might come out with something that you absolutely couldn't imagine. So just see this as a wonderful opportunity. And the point is that we have an amazing tool that equips us with all the knowledge we have, and that's Google. I can't praise Google search enough, because whenever I'm not certain with meanings of any kind of word, I just put it into the Google and it navigates you somewhere. It will provide you with lots of replies, with lots of explanation. And then you see, okay, I can see this word also from this perspective. So I wanted to show you something. I have a glass, hopefully it is already empty. Okay, so, well, so look at this. This is a glass, but at the same time, if I turn it like this, it looks entirely different and it's still the same glass. So this is the same game with, this is going to be challenging. Yeah, a little bit of water still. So this is the same game you do with words. It's still the same thing, still the same word. And it's nothing illegal. It's nothing unfair. No one told you that you can't turn it like this. It's free. This is the creativity in programs. And they count on the fact that we are going to be creative. But of course, you have to be creative within the framework they give you. They always give you some kind of framework, but it's not 100% limitation. It's really like the shape of a building, and you build your rooms within the shape of the building. So if you imagine that I tell you, okay, I'm going to build a skyscraper, so probably you will suggest me building different types of rooms than compared to the situation if I told you I'm going to build a romantic castle. And this moment you just feel naturally, okay, probably she expects me to come to her with slightly different proposals for different style of rooms than if it would be just, you know, concrete and glass. So just see it as fun. So whenever you don't understand something, this is something that you need to learn yourself. Be cautious and ask yourself questions. Okay, I don't know what it is. Many people just think it's a rubbish, I don't need to understand. And again, this is the art of applying for projects, because funding agency, they really need to express their visions on a really small space in terms of words. And therefore, it's a kind of like very condensed message. And therefore, really, each word has value. So really read the words, read them next to each other, because even the way they are placed next to each other, it might slightly change the meaning. So the art of text interpretation is a great art to work on whenever you want to apply for funding. Yeah, but I became a bit more philosophical. I didn't want to do this. Anyway, so let's return to project management theory. I talked a lot already about restrictions, that we are going to be restricted. And in this framework that is created by these restrictions, we need to place our project idea. So these restrictions are always to be cost, time, and scope of activities. So again, we can imagine the situation like cooking a dinner for someone. So that's a scope. So the idea is, okay, you will cook the dinner for someone. That's the scope. So cooking. So I need to have some ingredients to cook from. I need to have something to cook on, and I need to have someone who will cook, actually. Well, and now it depends how much time I have. If I have 5 minutes, you see, I can cook different things. If I have 2 days, I could cook something amazing. But then when I come to the third restrictions, cost, and they tell me, okay, you have £1, or you can you have 10 euros. And I say, okay, even if I have 5 days, okay, I might be very creative. So for example, oh yeah, this is lovely. And it refers to scope, by the way. So let's imagine the same situation. I still have my 10 euros and I have to cook a lunch for 20 people. Let's do something really crazy. If I have 5 minutes, that will be a great challenge. And sometimes I might think, okay, I can't do it. Some people might, like, I have a lot of rice, so I'm going to give people a lot of rice. Or I grew, or I planted my own hair, and now I got to the same problem as Katka. I can't remember the proper verb related to plants. Anyway, so I had a great crop of rice, and I can provide all these people with my own rice. And in that case, 10 euro is going to be just my profit. I'm selling my rice for 10 euros because I already had my rice. So that's another example. But still, I didn't have any rice before, but I have still 10 euros, and I have, let's say, a week, and I still have to make a lunch for 20 people. But just imagine if it's summertime or autumn time. Well, I could use this time to go to woods, to go outside and collect something. Even if I didn't plant something and didn't grow something, there is still plenty, for example, in the region where I live, available that I could get for free and create something really yummy, something really amazing out of it if I had time, if I had enough time. So as you see, online brainstorming, I'm trying to show you that even though still limited costs, if I was given a bit more time, I can create using the scope that is at the moment available to me, something amazing. But if I was, for example, living in a desert, and I know that I just can't pick anything in this nature because it's just sand. So unless I'm going to host at a lunch party some aliens who really like enjoy eating sand, so I can't create something special. So in this moment, I'm limited again by the scope of activities and resources that are available to me. So again, entirely different project. And for this reason, it's always important to understand your environment and the resources that are available to you, because then you can imagine better projects. So as you say, I was just at the moment brainstorming, and my brain was coming out with the resources that are available based on the location where I live and how I think and how we live our lives. But if you, for example, come from entirely different part of the world, you might come out with entirely different ideas. So I just wanted to highlight what is the role of money in your project thinking, time, and the scope. So time is time. We all understand, okay, we have 1 hour, 20 hours, 3 days. Cost, money. And scope is everything else. People, food available, resources, buildings, equipment. So that's the scope. What is available? And sometimes you think, okay, and these restrictions are usually in our project thinking being given by the funding authority, funding agency. So they tell you that you can apply for 3 years projects. They tell you this is the minimum of amount of money or maximum amount of money you can apply for. And they tell you generally what kind of activities are acceptable for them. So this is kind of general scope you get from them. And then you start to be specific. You think about your colleagues, your institution, and your I don't know, laboratory and the equipment you have, and you start to think, okay, if we had, for example, this additional machine, we could do more kind of experiments. So can they finance this equipment for us so that we can perform better experiments and understand the problem better? And yeah, in the rules of project, they tell you, okay, you can buy equipment, but sometimes they tell you, no, you can't buy equipment. So suddenly again, I get more and more restricted for my thinking. So understanding the restrictions is a crucial part of your project planning. So, and these restrictions coming from time, money, and whatever else you need, whatever other resources you need to for your activities, for performing the job of project, for performing the job of transferring your idea into real life. So it can be people, it can be buildings, it can be laboratories, it can be equipment, it can be knowledge. And when I return back from this plain language and plain examples to project management theory, so this is called project management triangle. And this triangle will always restrict your quality. So if I know that I don't have enough time, if I know that I don't have enough money, my quality, and it doesn't mean that I will perform low quality work, no, not at all, but I will just focus on smaller solutions related to my big question. So just like I mentioned in one of those examples before, if I still return to the equipment for cleaning dirty water, and I know that I have just I would be provided with 3 months and 2,000 euros. So I would say, okay, for this money, and in that time, I can do just the literature review. So this is the quality. So the only thing I can achieve for that money within this project triangle is, for example, literature review under circumstances that it's only me. And I'm at the very beginning of my research towards my objectives, towards achieving my aim to provide people with drinkable water. So these triangles are very important, and they help you again in kind of putting your thinking about your project into the right place at the moment. As I said at the beginning, every project is unique. So I'm being given a bit of money. Okay, so I will just focus on one smaller what that needs to be done in order to achieve my bigger vision, my bigger aim. Again, I can return to my practical life. So when I gave you an example of us as consultants trying to provide people with a good training, at the very beginning, I couldn't find any resource that would be, when I returned to triangle. So as you see, so I couldn't find any resource that would give me enough money to pay. We wanted at that time to get money for the certified trainings in project management. And these trainings were like 1,200 euros per person, which is a lot. But I came across some calls for proposal that would give me a little bit of money to at least invite an amazing trainer, amazing lecturer to the Czech Republic. So I thought, okay, at the beginning, at the moment, there's nothing else available. So I'm going to reduce the quality of what I want to achieve to just, small steps, one training. So I applied at that time, and it was, I always remember this, it was just 4,000 euros. I applied with Visegrad Fund, and I got the money. It was short. It was, they have some kind of short projects which are for 1 year only, and the calls are every, I think, 3 months. So it was so flexible and so easy to write. And, I had at that time not that many experience in project writing, so it fitted also by the scope. I didn't have skills are also part of the scope. And yeah, so this example I gave you just to show you, when I talk about quality, it's not about being lousy, it's just about reducing the amount of what you want to achieve at the moment to the restrictions that are available at the moment. Of course, later, when there was more money available and longer projects, I suddenly, with my colleagues and with my team, could apply for bigger solutions. But yeah, this is what the project management triangle teaches us and helps us with when we think about our projects. So while I was talking, you could read the definitions of what is meant by costs, what is meant by scope, and what is meant by time. So as you see here, the scope is defined by the range of activities, but always these activities, these changes can only be achieved by using resources other than time and money. And this is what I mentioned: people, equipment, buildings, knowledge, even, because it's intangible, but without knowledge you can't move further. And sometimes you have to pay a lot of money for knowledge, or sometimes it takes time to get a knowledge. So always think about knowledge as a resource as well. So to sum it up, whenever you set yourself objective, it needs to be relevant to this project management triangle, meaning it needs to be relevant to time, money, resources, and the needs of interested groups. Again, so these needs of interested groups will always be defined a bit also by this scope. So what can be done and how. So it's kind of a mixture of everything else that I need to implement activities, to implement actions. They tell us what kind of actions can be done. So that's the reason why I highlighted here again the needs of interested groups. And if you remember the definition from the very beginning, it also talked about these restrictions or requirements. The definition used the word requirement. And you see, I think it's getting quite long already. I guess I don't have my watch at the moment, so I think it's at least 1 hour, because whenever my muscles in my mouth start to be tired, I feel it must be at least 1 or 1.5 hours when I'm talking. So I think that I'm now going to take a short break myself, drink a bit and refresh myself. I will just, pause recording probably, because I don't want to stop it. Okay, so I will stop sharing at the moment. I will just pause the recording. Okay, pause. Okay, so it seems like I'm recording again. I have a bit of water again with me. And let's finish the couple of slides that are still left in relation to explaining some basic principles of project management. So I'm going to share with you again my presentation. I didn't check what was the time. I think it must be now 1 or 1.5 hours because I feel quite tired, and this happens when I keep on talking for 1.5 hours, and I always need a break. You can always pause it, but I know if I pause it, it will be so difficult to return, to the flow of my thoughts, and I will forget what I was talking about. So let's return to this project management triangle and why it is important. Because sometimes people tend to set higher, not realistic objectives that are simply impossible to implement based on the restrictions, the limitations that you are being given by these 3 features of the project management triangle. So don't be afraid. No one will talk to you about project management triangles in the future. I bet you will never hear this concept again. But what you will always hear is money and time and well, they don't use it frequently, the word scope, but they will talk about equipment and people, and they will talk about resources you can use and in which manners you can use them. And the trouble with projects is that you will collect information for this scope category in more documents. Most of the times, it's also important to read kind of financial regulation, because they tell you if you can finance people, if you can finance students, if you can buy equipment, if you can travel, where you can travel, and so on. So this will tell you, this will navigate your thinking towards what scope is available for your possible project solutions, what kind of resources you can use, plus you always think, okay, these are resources I can use, but I have to ask myself questions again. Do I have them? Can I get them? Can I buy them? Can I rent them? Can I hire them? Because there are always different strategies how to gain resources. And the trouble is that sometimes people focus so much on those resources that they don't ask themselves one of the three crucial questions from the very beginning. For example, why I need this equipment? Do I really need this equipment? Or do I just need the results of experiments that I can perform using this equipment? Because if the only thing you need are, for example, results of some kind of experiments, you can always hire a private company to perform the experiments for you. But you might say, okay, I have to do them myself. Then tell me why you have to do them yourself. Because, for example, you want to learn to design these experiments, you want to test these experiments, whatever. But the trouble is that funding agencies, they always give you restrictions for money expenditures. So sometimes they tell you, well, you tell me that you want to buy something for 2 million euros to perform your experiments. But I'm sorry, this is something that's called investment, and you can perform all kind of experiments with it later after you will finish project that I will finance. And in a way, I am by this financing you a profit. You are going to profit from this equipment even after our collaboration will end. And this is something that funding agencies hardly ever want to do. So be careful whenever you find some restrictions given to you by funding authority. Don't get lost by the fact that, for example, you can't buy this equipment. Just ask yourself, do I need this equipment? Okay, if you say yes, so do I have to purchase it? If you see that you can't because of the funding authority, they tell you can't buy equipment. So then you might also think, okay, I might hire a private company to perform experiments for me. Well, but that means that I'm buying service. And again, service might be limited by the funding authority by some rules. I don't want to perform tenders. I don't want to organize tenders. That could be challenging. But do I know some other university that has this equipment? And when I say, okay, but there are so many other universities, for example, that have this equipment, and I could collaborate with them. So this is a wonderful thing about research projects, that most of the times you will apply with consortium of project partners, with consortium of institutions. So then you can find a collaborator in your project. He will be your project partner, other university. They have the equipment, and the problem is solved. You just need money for material, for people, and this probably might work within the core regulations. So you see, you need to learn yourself to be flexible and always ask yourself the first three questions. Whenever you get lost at the smaller level, ask yourself, why I want this equipment? Because it's nice to have it. No one is going to finance something that is just nice to have it. Everything has to be related to your project. So whenever your objective is not realistic, as you could see on the slide, the level of risks related to your project implementation will always increase. So be careful. Okay, what's the next? Wow, so I included these three slides because I wanted to talk again about how seeing what has to be done at the end navigates you thinking in the frame of this project triangle. So here is just an example of you at the same situation at the very beginning. You just don't have money, you want to build something, and it depends what kind of achievement, what kind of goal is another word they quite frequently use. So what measurable output you want to have at the end of your project. So if it's just a house, if it's a castle, if it's a house for a dog, I don't know how you call the house for the dog, but you know what I mean. But anyway, when I see what is at the end of my project, so even though I am at the start of the project at the same situation, I can analyze the scope of activities that need to be done. And no one says that even if you are absolutely penniless at the very beginning, but you are creative, that you can't end up with things like a castle at the end. By the way, there is one really cute story from Sherlock Holmes that talks about, well, the story is about a rich man that got missing, and later on Sherlock Holmes discovers that this man earned all his fortune by begging in the streets of London. So this might be possible under certain circumstances if you are creative and if you provide your target audience with a proper performance. So even you having absolutely nothing can mean that you can earn money for the castle at the end. But you need to be creative, and whatever is available, you need to adjust it to the situation and to the time that is available to you. Yeah, so again, so these illustrations just again refer to something that I already tried to explain from many different angles. So I'm not going to stop with these slides anymore. Yeah, and all the time, I think I doubt that I'm going to listen to this training one more time, because then I would be horrified how many mistakes I made, and probably I wouldn't make it public. So just try to avoid not sharing it with you. I think I mentioned many times in the previous time how important it is to use your question why I am doing something. If you have your answer for your why, it will always help you to come out with better solution. Because if you don't know why you are doing something, you might end up quite disappointed with your projects. And again, I had lots of personal examples when not that I wouldn't have my why, but I forgot why I am doing certain things. And I ended up, even with a successful project implementation, but things went slightly in a different direction than I expected at the beginning, because every project will have, the professional part of it and a human part of it. And you want to have these two to be in balance, because at the end of the day, it's your energy, it's your life that you are investing in your project. So it's really good if your professional project life is in tune with your personal life as well. So always, whenever you plan any kind of project, include the human factor in it. Not only you, but your colleagues. Just respect all of you, who you are, what you can expect or can't expect from people, and just be realistic. Actually, when I was searching for the books that I wanted to share with you, so I came across another very thick one, and the book is called Work Psychology. So that's quite, I don't know if you can see it, it's really thick, I think like 2.5 or 3 centimeters even. And it just talks about people collaborating together. So it's a huge amount of knowledge again. So although we do it on a daily basis in some kind of intuitive manner, but there's a lot going on in the projects in terms of people and organizations, people in organizations, and people interacting with each other. So anyway, before you start to plan your project, you need to be really certain that what you want to do is really in tune with those specific requirements coming out from your own situation, plus the requirements that are coming from the side of funding authority. So, and after you understand your limitations and you really kind of analyze the whole problem, and it depends what ways of analyzing your problem are the closest to you. I tend to read a lot, think a lot. If I have good partners, then we talk about the problem. And then I usually get lost because there is so much around me. So I start to visualize my thoughts. So I have a lot of notebooks where I all the time keep records of my thoughts that are going on in relation to project I'm busy with at the moment. Or I just love the walls, and whenever I have some place where I could put my ideas around me. So there is actually, I can share it later, there is a huge part of my wall covered with what I wanted to do in relation to one chore which I had, which was still related to my previous project. And it was, I had to write a book in which I wanted to share all the experience related to international projects. And because it was a big challenge for me, as after 20 years, I really am careful with spending too much time next to the keyboard and typing anything what no one is going to read. So I tried a long time. I thought it over a lot. And, I came up with an entirely unexpected solution. That was the reason when I started this YouTube channel, because I thought I just can't write for writing anymore. I just want to do something that makes sense. Or at least even if I can share it with people who followed my project during the COVID, who attended my webinar. So I thought, okay, this will be the most efficient way. So whenever you put your thoughts out to the world, it will kind of help moving things towards the better solutions than if you just start to write directly, replying all the individual sections in the project template, project proposal template. Because many times I have seen projects like this, people get repetitive because they don't know what to write about. While if you know the situation really well and everything is organized in your head, you can sit next to the keyboard and you type and everything is perfect. I just, when I started to talk about this, I remembered one of the clients I had. And I still remember, I remember the name of birds in Czech, but I don't remember because we talked in Czech. He was a client from Czech Republic. And I still remember how many eggs the birds laid and how long it took before they got from Europe to Australia, and that they didn't stop on the way. That guy was absolutely amazing. He had a wonderful network, even though he still haven't finished his PhD. But, he was just ripe. He was ready. He had all the knowledge. He had contacts. He had ideas. He had visions. And he knew he wanted to go to fellowship, 2 years fellowship. At that time, I think it was still called individual fellowship because it was within Horizon 2020. But you can only apply for the fellowship when you have your PhD. And he still wasn't ready. But what was so wonderful? I just admired him so much because it was September. At the beginning of September, he had his final defense of his PhD thesis. Then he had 2 weeks to write the proposal for Marie Sklodowska-Curie. He did it. But, it was perfect because we talked about it. So he knew about the scheme ages before he wrote the project as such. He already formulated all his ideas. He already talked to his supervisors. So everything was kind of prepared. And this actually typing was just the final stage, or the thinking about project was done before. I would say it was cooked much earlier, before those 2 weeks. So from external perspective, it looked like it took him just 2 weeks to write a project with which he was successful. That was wonderful. I was so happy for him. These are moments that are always so rewarding for me, when clients with whom, even when we find alternative ways and when they finally succeed, it's a great joy of being consultant. But anyway, so even though this man wrote his project in 2 weeks and was successful, he was writing most of his research career because he did so much that when he was asked, for example, about the expeditions he organized or where he just knew what to write about. It was so easy for him because it was full of content. It was full of real events, real achievements, and it was not replying abstract language by another abstract language, which is what people quite frequently do if they don't think it over, what the question from the side of funding authority is really about, and start to reply. Just to give you an example, are you the right person, or why are you the right person to perform this research? I am the right person to perform this research because I have been doing it a long time. Okay, I could be sitting here 2-3 days and still it doesn't mean that I'm a good consultant or whatever. So be careful. So we will talk about this art also later when I'm going to cover the topic of how to write a good project proposal. So again, now you see we are returning back to this one of the first slides with the definition of what is project. So I tried to explain you the philosophy behind it, and now we return back to this basic definition. And now we probably start to understand the role of start and finish dates and the limits, and the fact that everything is going to be unique. So let's have a look on the other parts of the project management art. So every project is so this is the first part of this definition, is a unique process. And I agreed in my monologue that process is about a change, which consists of coordinated and controlled activities. So in this first section before my own break, I explained you what is the difference between aim, objective, and strategy. And now we get into more specific parts. So we will talk about processes and activities and how to coordinate them and control, or what does it mean? Because how to coordinate and control them, that's your choice, how you will do it. Well, what does it mean? That's the better question for us for now. So as you see, this is again a definition from this amazing material, which is called Norm. And it tells us the process, and I'm going to read this one because someone else already did the job with expressing this thought in a really nice way. So the process is a set group of interrelated or interacting activities which transform inputs into outputs. So logically, it tells us again a lot. We need to have some kind of inputs. We need to see into what we want to turn them. And for you, probably I should show it the other way around because there is a mirror image in the camera. But anyway, so you need to see what kind of output you want to achieve. So for example, I want to provide training for people in project management basic principles. What are the inputs? Well, it's me. I have the camera, I have the computer, I have Wi-Fi, I don't have money, so I can't travel. And well, so actually, okay, what can I do? What could be the process? I could record my training and share it on YouTube. But whenever I tell you, okay, recording the training, it means that someone, and again, it's a train of thoughts which can be navigated by thinking. So I said that one of the output is someone records a training. Okay, training needs to be prepared. So by this logic, you get into smaller and smaller outputs. And so you are transferring your process into smaller activities. You ask yourself, okay, so you tell me that your output, this training output, is going to be a video on YouTube with some specific content. And now you see that I'm adding characteristics. So in a way, I am defining my smaller objective. So what it is on my bigger journey of helping people to become better in project proposal writing and advancing their research career. And by defining this, you just start to ask yourself, okay, what needs to be done? What kind of activities I need to perform in order to do it? So for example, I know at the moment that I don't want to cut videos. It again takes time. And, when I started to check all the settings for rendering the last time when we did something with Katka, so it was just because I used this PowerPoint presentation and I used one slide from ResearchGate that summarized her research activities, but there were mistakes in this ResearchGate summary. So Katka wanted me to change this slide. So we could either re-record the whole interview, which would mean, okay, it wouldn't be that spontaneous anymore. And yeah, we simply decided, okay, we would solve the problem technically, which meant that I spent after 3 hours, okay, I replaced my wrong slide in After Effects, in Adobe After Effects. That was okay. But then when it came to rendering, before I found the proper technical settings, it took 3 hours and 3 trials before I got to some kind of acceptable quality results. Okay, so Yep. So this is a definition of process. It's change and which transforms inputs into outputs. I think there's no need to talk more about this. I think this is quite clear. And when it comes to activities, you see, I use this parallel with fishes. Yeah, which I think is quite visual and is quite understandable. So in a way, they are about the same, only they are at a smaller level. So as you see, the definition of activity again talks about the smallest identified item of work in a project process, again, which transform some inputs into some outputs. And when it comes then to your presenting the work breakdown structure and logical structure of your project solution, always imagine that every smallest task in your project will have some inputs, and ask yourself, okay, where these inputs come from which activity they come. So these questions will help you to create this coordination. They will tell you how to organize this puzzle into some logical scheme, logical structure, where your fishes in your process, where your activities in your process will sometimes just go next to each other, because simply I need Radka for this activity. Radka is going to prepare the training. And if I had some technician, so the technician could later prepare the video for YouTube. But because I don't have anything like this, so it will be not next to each other. No one is going to support me in recording my videos. It will be just, activities will have to be one after another, because simply my resource is just Radka. If I had more people, I could, for example, move the activities a bit next to each other. They could go parallel. But if I'm limited in resources, like in this case, I have to go one after another. So the more people I hire, the more efficient I could be in my project. But hiring more people means that I need money. Do I want to have money at the moment? Well, there are no calls for proposals open. I don't have any additional money. I can't hire other people. So I can only, and I'm returning now to the project management triangle, to the restriction or limitations I have at the moment. So just like that person sitting on the street and trying to get money for his mansion or for the house or whatever, and just using resources that are available at the moment and trying to achieve my objective, which is always represented by some kind of specific output. So the objective is usually like, I want to achieve, well, the output. So usually the objective and output, most of the times when it comes to wording, differs only in objective is I want to achieve this, and output is this is it. So I want to create trainings for free using, that will be my objective, just the resources I have available at the moment, which means video online. And the output is video including the that includes the training, is placed on YouTube and hopefully is also seen by somehow. So also obviously I would also have to add some kind of dissemination activities to share with people the fact that there is a YouTube channel and my videos are presented for free on this channel. So actually this is something I did before. I shared with all the people who attended my webinars. But at the moment, again, it's just me. So I had to, and that again refers to project management triangle and quality. I just had to decide in which direction I will highlight the quality. So I thought, okay, at the beginning, I need to have some kind of content. And once there is a content, I could do more dissemination because people will know what will be there, what kind of quality we can offer, and if there is a potential for them to return. So again, it's a lot, even if it's just you and no money, you think about the problem and you will come out with solutions. So the reason why I'm giving you these specific examples is because I want to demonstrate what these processes and activities are in real life. And whenever I do trainings, it's lovely to see real people and we can talk about experiences we share. And then I demonstrate much better these differences between processes and activities. While if I'm just alone sitting in a room with my computer. The only real thing that we all share at the moment is this product, is this situation. So that's the reason why in my examples, I tend to refer to what I'm living now and what I'm sharing with you, even though at the moment you will watch this video, I'm not there. But we will meet together at this moment, even though in real time, it will be different time for me and different time for you. But there will be a moment when we are going to meet, okay? Only this meeting is going to be always one-sided. Well, who knows? Later, maybe we will again organize something in real life. Who knows? So this is the difference between process and activity, just the scope. Always it will be, again, input, output. There will be some resources related to implementation of activity or a process. And if I say it like this, if I tell you that every activity and a process has a start and end date, you might think, well, it sounds a bit like a definition of a project. And you are absolutely right, because even the smallest activity, even the process, they are sub-projects of your project. So with that amazing, that's the reason why I like this definition at the very beginning. So if you look at your activities, if you look at your tasks with the lens of definition of a project, you know that there have to be input, output. There is a small project triangle related to your activity. So you know, okay, I will have some scope of activity related to this task. I need time, I need money. When you start to think about scope of activity, you think about real people, you imagine what kind of work they are going to perform, how you organize it all together. And this is exactly how we plan projects. So we start to go from this big abstract idea that I want to help people to live a healthy life by providing them with healthy drinking water. And from this vision, you need to get to the smallest possible moment when you imagine Radka sitting somewhere in the lab and performing some experiments, and you imagine, okay, these experiments need to be performed, this needs to be tested, who will do it, how long it will take. And that suddenly from the big picture, I get to the small one, because on this small level, I'm going to make my idea alive. So by these small real life steps, I implement my visions. That's number one. I organize my vision. So this is the coordinated. And I can only on this smallest level see how costly it will be. And if I can somewhere, for example, reduce a bit my idea of quality, because of course it would be wonderful to perform, I don't know, 1,000 experiments, but because I know that I'm limited by time and money, so I know, okay, the quality of my results will be slightly worse if I perform only, and I know I always give extreme examples, so I know you think it's ridiculous, usually it's much less experiments you need to perform, but let's say, okay, standard excellent would be, okay, 1,000 times I'm going to try something and I have 100%, I'm 100% certain that this or that is going to work. I will understand the problem. But then again, this probability, I know that with 500 experiments, for 80%, I can say that this is the way how this or that works. And for the money we have available, I just have to be satisfied with this level of quality. And that this is, this is the kind of like weights in your mind. You just always have to, or scales, you have to decide where to compromise and where you just can't compromise. So this is the whole game of project planning. And this is also the reason why every project is unique, because we all come from different environments. We have different ideas, our brains have different biases, our cultures see work differently. So this all comes into our project solutions. So to summarize the difference between activity and process, I've already mentioned it. They are all small and smallest projects. So therefore, the logic related to project with beginning, end, limitations refers to activities and processes as well. Why I need them? Because this is the moment when from pixels, I create a picture. So you identify these pixels, these pieces of puzzles that need to be clicked together so that your work flows in the direction of your objective, and this objective fits within the framework of your vision, so that you won't end up with something else than you intended to. This R is here because I wanted to do some some tasks, some practical tasks here in the webinar. So anyway, process. So the logic is it's a bit like units of your project. So project is a big unit which is usually created by a set of processes. In international projects, you usually call them work packages, or sometimes, and now it comes to really different languages. So sometimes they call them key activities. So process can be called key activity. Okay, but again, it will be just a higher level of group of activities that you want to perform. And you usually group your activities by a couple of things. Either by time, for example, that certain activities need to be performed at the beginning of your project just to set the environment for your project. So you group activities which might seem to be entirely different, like hiring people and establishing my lab, but I know that I need to prepare this environment at the very beginning just to prepare conditions for me to start to run my experiments. So you just group these activities to a bigger process just because of the timing. Sometimes you group these things because of the nature of the activities that are being performed, or probably because you want to group activities based on where it can be performed. So you want to have teams to be working locally on something. So again, that motivates you to create your own logical structure within the project. So again, returning back, everything will be always unique. And it's fun because sometimes people, when I used to do my trainings with mock evaluations, so I used to give people real life projects, and it was like PhD students and postdocs who have never written project before, or never evaluated anything before, or never implemented any project before. And it was so cute because they tended to criticize the way in which the project solution was organized. And they never asked themselves the core question: is this way a way to achieve the objective? That's the first thing. And if I say it is not an efficient way to achieve the objective, I need to show to the person who suggested this journey, this organization of processes and activities, why I think it's a wrong way. So you can never, and this is a challenge always of the evaluation process, that people say, no, it's a not nice project. But if you say, I don't agree with this solution, then tell me, where is the problem? What would you do differently? And if you can't say this, unfortunately, in the evaluation procedure, most of the times evaluators have to give you comments. They have to explain why they reduce your scores, why they don't agree with your solution. So it forces them to be really cautious about the judgments. But this is actually what we do in project proposal writing. We introduce our solutions, our split into processes, our split into actions and activities and tasks. We introduce our outputs. And if we did it right, in a good manner, the text will be convincing. But this is, again, something that I promised I will cover in different training. So now I think that's all about activities and processes, and this is what we are heading towards. So from the chaos of our thinking, we need to put everything into a kind of organized visual structure, which, and this is an amazing thing, because I look at this scheme and I see your strategy, I see your solution, I see whether this is going in a good direction. This work breakdown structure needs some additional schemes in order to be understood really well, but this already gives you, as an evaluator, a partial information about the project without reading it entirely. So be cautious whenever you visually, this is how visually you present your chosen strategy of how to split your objective, how to split your project that is heading towards certain objective into minor processes so that you can better organize your resources towards still the objective. This is why I'm doing it. And here you show the logical structure of your thinking, of this coordinated and controlled. And this is now the moment. This is the way you show how you coordinate the task, the activities that needs to be done towards your objective. And when we start to talk about control, this is the additional information we need here. We need to see the outputs from those single tasks, because now I see, okay, so you tell me that by the end of your project, you are going to have bicycles. For example, you want to produce some kind of bicycle example. So that's my objective, is to produce bicycle for elderly people who will commute in Liberec. Liberec is hilly town, so there might be some specific requirements you need to add, or some specific technical features you need to add to your bicycle, for example. Okay, so that's my objective. Deliverable will be this objective. This bicycle is finished. You see, I'm getting tired already. But anyway, if I look at this and I see, okay, here they made the frame, here are the tires, but yeah, okay, where is the seat? I'm missing it here. So just by looking at it, I might see problems in your project solution. So again, this is a visualization of how you decided to coordinate the activities that need to be performed to achieve your project objective. Okay. But this all I have been talking about a lot at the moment. So this first, I like to compare the project planning to puzzle. The size of those pieces of puzzle, this is your decision. But in order to be able to create size big enough, and now when I talk about size, it means, well, talking about tasks, so that the evaluator can put all bits together of your puzzle and see again this idea, what I want to achieve by my project. So when I take all my pieces of my puzzle, and this is what I design, these are my tasks, and I put them together again, as your evaluator, as someone who is going later to implement your project, I will get this picture. But to be able to, I want to return, yeah. But to be able to get here, at first, you need to have your vision, what I want to achieve. Then I start to think about what needs to be done. I organize it. And what you do later, plus what your evaluator does, he puts visually the bits of your puzzle together, and he asks yourself, will I get this, the picture? And you later, when you will implement your project by putting it all together, will you or will you not get what you plan? That's a question. That's a philosophical question. So, well, as you see, now we are, again, a summary. So what we did, we already talked about the process. We covered from this definition. You see, I keep on returning to definition, but because in a way in this training, I just keep on explaining every single word from this sentence, because it is just covering absolutely everything that's related to project planning and project thinking. So this is example of another visualization of your thoughts. It always adds, this is called Gantt chart. And this is this additional visual information that you need always to get through the work breakdown structure, which I showed you here. This is a work breakdown structure. So you see what kind of work needs to be done at a smaller level. Of course, within the task, there will still be some activities or smallest actions. And usually when we plan our activities, it's good to get to the level of days or weeks, because we can imagine how much work can be done in a day or week. But to plan your project in years or months, that might be challenging in terms later of estimating properly all the resources that you need. But I will talk about this in another training that will be focused on money as well as project writing. So this is an example of a project Gantt chart, which I could visually present like this. And this would be visual presentation I would use more for my team, because it goes into quite a lot of details. So here I can talk, this is one process, another process, and here is a list of activities within. So I hope you can see the movements of mouse. Next time, I think I have to take something to make notes to my PowerPoint. But anyway, so these are processes, the big ones here. These could be activities, and within, in the frame of these activities, actions or tasks, whatever you call them, will be still smaller level of activities. So most of the times the language will be key activity or a work package for process. Actions or activities will be called tasks. And then within the task you have, sorry, I need to drink. And within the tasks, you still have some actions, some activities that need to be performed. And at the level of activities, you imagine the real resources, people, money, time, I need to implement it. So this is an example of visualization of time frame of your project. So you see how all my processes are organized in time, which of them are running next to each other, and which of them might depend on finishing the previous one, but the dependencies are usually not seen in the Gantt chart. That's the reason why you always need to have this work breakdown structure, the first visualization of the logic, the scheme, how you coordinate your work, plus this Gantt chart, which add the time dimension. And you usually have a word comment to it where you talk about relations between single work packages or tasks. Sometimes you can get a Gantt chart like this, that you show a bit dependencies between certain tasks. But most of the times it will be really plain table like this, which is most of the times done just in Excel, or they have some kind of online tool where you just fill in how long certain process, certain work packages or key activity, whatever they call those highest processes you split your project solution into, will be visualized. So actually this table talks about exactly the same as this table. So suddenly you see there's a different level of detail, and when I present my project in a project proposal, I can't give that much detail because evaluator could be lost. I kind of give only strategic vision, and at the right moment I give details, but you mustn't overwhelm anyone with too much details. And the use of mustn't was really intended. Be careful, because if you overwhelm people with too much detail, it really can work against you in project proposal. So it's again an art of writing good project proposal. It's like any other kind of writing, it's creative process. So this talks about the fact that I am using my resources efficiently. Sometimes that was fun when I used to work as an evaluator, when all these 9 processes, when all these 9, let's call them key activities or work packages, would be running from the beginning to the end of the project, it would look weird, because it seems like it might be that 9 separate projects are running next to each other. They are not interrelated. So what you present me is not a project. It's just you want me to give you money. But funding agencies always want to see your outputs. They are not interested in providing universities with budgets. They are interested in results. So that's the reason whenever your Gantt chart would look like always all from the very beginning to the end, everything is running next to each other, it's just suspicious. So everyone is going to read your project really carefully and ask yourself if really you are going to implement the things that you talk about. Because this is the fun about project proposals. people tend to overlook the facts that you also talk by your visuals. And, you know, by the end of the day, project proposals are just words, and they need to be trustworthy. And the fact that you are coherent with your story in the implementation, even in the minor outputs, that everything talks the truth story towards your objective, that is what makes your project proposal credible. So I could see as an evaluator that it was one of the lessons I learned, that it is so easy for someone who was not involved in the project writing to see any problem, any mistakes you have made in your thinking. So be careful, you know, and I'm running out of my voice, so I think this is going to be a really long video. So anyway, the last concepts I should explain are milestones and deliverables. So milestones really come from this traditional usage. These are just some kind of really important moments during your project implementation, when you achieve something based on which you could go further. So for example, if I want to build a house, my first milestone could be that I have money or that I have land. So that's the milestone. And then I need to have a design, that could be the milestone, and that I hired all the people to work, that could be the milestone. So not the details, it's again just, you know, like when you plan your journey, of course, you know, you will have to go through all the tiny villages on your journey, but generally to give someone idea in which direction you travel. So whenever I go, for example, to England by car, I just say, okay, I go to Leipzig, then I turn to the left near Magdeburg, and yeah, and well, in Osnabrück, just straight on, and then I'm in Holland, and I stay night in Holland, and then I drive further to England. It's the best way to me how to drive to England. So I don't mention everything that happens on the way, but when I tell you thing like that, you can already create kind of idea about what I'm going to do, and what are important moments. So for example, returning back to this journey, you can imagine, okay, her second milestone is going to be 400 kilometers after she started. So she might be already tired. It might become risky moment. So she would have to do something. And that is exactly what the milestones talk about. They tell, okay, this is an important thing. You are halfway somewhere, something was done, but also, you know, the environment changed. So near the milestones, you always need to compare the plan, your project proposal, your project idea with the reality. So this is why milestones are important. They just help you both to introduce your project idea, but also later when you are going to implement your project, you see, okay, this is my milestone. Have we done everything we planned to do? Did we do things differently? Why did we do them differently? Because we still have in mind our objective. So for example, let's return to the journey. I switched on the navigation. This is something I learned actually, even though this journey is really easy. I learned that there might be accidents on the road. And if you use navigation, they tell you there is something on the road. So the other day I didn't do it because, you know, it's so easy. You don't need navigation. And then I stayed 5 hours in a queue. I just had to wait because, you know, and if I knew, I just would avoid this piece of highway because it was already getting to the moment where you couldn't get out of the highway. And I still just, it was really a question of 500 meters. And then I thought, okay, that's it, 5 hours. So sometimes, even if something is obvious, it's a good thing to add some additional controlling activities to help you to change whatever is important to change. So even though you think your milestones are, they are of course important because, you know, by, let's say, Magdeburg, it would be for me 400, I'm halfway on halfway ready with my project, but still something can go wrong, and still the objective is to get somewhere. So I don't have to be near the Magdeburg, but I have to be somewhere 400 kilometers from my hometown. So if the situation changes, I can take a different route. So this is actually, again, really lovely example. So when you define your objective, your milestone, define them like this example 400 kilometers away from home. And I know that whatever happens on the journey, I just want to be 400 kilometers from home. And it doesn't matter if there is, well, of course it matters if there is an accident or whatever happens, but you just take a different journey. So again, it's an art how to define your milestones well. Don't limit yourself by, in this case, saying, you will have to be near Magdeburg. You don't have to be near Magdeburg. You have to be somewhere which is 400 kilometers from your home in the direction, in a good direction. So you see, by adding characteristics to your milestones, wise characteristics, which give you enough clues to help you to navigate your thinking and activities towards your objective, but also give you space not to limit yourself in the moment when you were supposed to achieve the milestone. So the milestone being in Magdeburg actually has no sense if my project is not to get to Magdeburg. My project is to get to Holland, for example. So is this clear? So milestones are, again, a little bit higher level kind of planning features of your project. What, again, in steps I have to achieve in order to get somewhere. So just like Roman army marching in England, milestones told them how many miles they still have left to get to York, for example. Okay, so milestones are important turning points. I've already done something and I'm getting closer to my objective. And things can happen. That's why I have these milestones. They are also for me as a kind of controlling points that tell me, okay, am I going in a good direction? And don't be rigid with milestones. Of course, in the project proposal, it's just a vision, so you introduce some, but they are for you really good tool later when you control what happens in real life, and you just compare where you thought you could be by now and what needs to be done in order to get again on track and head towards your objective. So the next concept, and I believe it's one of the last ones I'm going to bother you with in this training, are deliverables. So my norm doesn't talk about deliverables. It talks about products or outputs. In a way, it's all the same. It's just, you know, this change, this something that didn't exist and exists because of your activities. You of course define it because you know that this is the reason why I'm doing something. But most of the time, it can be the knowledge. I did the literature review in relation to my equipment to clean the water, that would clean the water. So I have the knowledge. But the trouble is, how do you share the knowledge? And this is the moment when deliverables come into the game. Sorry, I have to drink. And a bit of coughing as well. So deliverables are exactly what the word is. It is the way how to deliver your output or product. Just imagine that your objective or your output was that castle. You wanted to build a castle and you got some funding for this. Definitely you couldn't prove that you build the castle with the money by the fact that you will take the castle and bring it somewhere. So you always have to find out a way how you prove that you have achieved an output or how you would share this output with someone else. So most of the times you just need to turn your product, your output into something tangible that could be delivered as a proof that you have achieved what you promised to achieve. So most of the times in our case, deliverables will be some kind of reports, studies, summaries. So your products, it turned into words which I can simply share by email or in words by writing or whatever. It could be even photos. So once we planned to create a quite large exhibition in one of our projects. And so I would say the output or the product was the exhibition as such. But, you know, there were so many small things related to it. So at that time, I remember we had to pay a lot of things cash. And then there was quite a lot of expenditure. So we were asked to give our funding authority additional deliverable that would prove all these minor expenditures. And because I already was kind of prepared that this is going to be something unusual, so I already collected some kind of information that would prove what we were doing. And as I said, it doesn't have to be always words. So I was taking a lot of photos just to show, to demonstrate the stages, what we were doing. And, you know, it was a small thing. Whenever we were doing something, I made a documentation, and I just started to store everything in one file. And when I was really in real life asked to, you know, give some additional materials in order to comment on all these expenditures. Number one, I could copy all the documents and give comments to every single paper, but I knew what was the purpose of this question, just to see whether it was really relevant to activities we were performing. So I thought, okay, everything is about kind of finding balance. So I thought, before I'm going to copy every single paper and comment on it, I will just provide them with this material to show what we were doing in this time frame and what we used this money for, because you could obviously see when we started these expenditures and when they ended. And wonderful, it was enough because it served the purpose. So again, be careful when you plan your deliverables. It doesn't have to be in a manner someone tells you that this is usual. So copying every single receipt you got for your purchases doesn't have to be. It can be alternative. I can give you another example, very practical one, talking about deliverables. So quite frequently projects plan as one of their products or outputs, however you call it, it's really equal. But be careful, some funding agency might give different meanings to the word. So again, be cautious all the time. So anyway, web pages. Most of the projects these days plan to create web pages, and it was really fun. And that's again why I recommend Cordis database so frequently. See my another video. So over there, you can compare different approaches to deliverables by single teams. So again, this can be something how to cure your biases. And so returning back to the example of web pages, so it was fun because some teams reported or presented this output in the form of, all of them used a report as a deliverable. But some teams provided the European Commission with 50 pages long report on how we decided about the structure, how we collected data, how we did the programming and the visual part. While another extreme was just send the Commission www.something.something and check, this is the product, this is, and you know what's wonderful? Obviously, it was enough. So then next time when you plan your project, this knowledge will tell you what is enough for the funding authority, and it's not costly, doesn't take that much time to produce, but will be satisfactory for the funding authority. So again, thinking about deliverables, you always need to have some tool how to prove that you achieved certain outputs or product. Most of the times you can't send the output, you can't send the knowledge to someone. You need to transform it into some kind of tangible product. Most of the times it will be a report, or as I said, it can be a picture or whatever, which you can easily share with someone else, most of the times funding agency. And this is, again, I'm quite frequently being asked, how many milestones or how many deliverables are enough? Well, this is, again, like every project is unique. It's unique for your situation. So the purpose is that you need to show the strategic thinking behind this all. So if you plan too many deliverables, you won't do anything else than just write deliverables, send them somewhere, control whether they were submitted, whether they were correct. You know, there are so many moments when you can create additional problems to your project, additional risks, and you are going to make your project more costly. If the funding agency doesn't ask you to send them something every single day, why doing it? Why would you be doing this? So be careful. So when I was thinking about this question, I was inspired to this picture, because you have just too many milestones and deliverables. It will be just chaos. It will be a lot of words. It will be it won't serve the purpose with which you use these tools in your strategic thinking. It's not strategic thinking anymore. So imagine milestones and deliverables really like on your journey, the major towns, the major circuits, the major moment when something is going to change, when you will achieve something significant, and it's worth of showing to someone who gave you money that, okay, we use your money in a way in which we agreed in a contract and we are heading towards the objective. So this is how the game with milestones and deliverables should look more like. And in reality, if you end up with deliverable like 51, this is already a little bit too much. So be cautious and careful, because whatever is deliverable most of the times needs to be delivered to the funding authority. And the trend these days is that it is supposed to be delivered at the day when it was planned to be finished. So if you have the deadlines for your deliverables for every single month of your project implementation, again, in real life, it means that every single month of your project implementation, you will have to send something to your funding authority. So behind every word, there's a meaning and a lot of action. So yeah, you just ask yourself what it is and how am I going to work with it in order that it serves me, and that I will avoid me serving this tool, which happens when you have too many of milestones and deliverables and too many risks. And as you see, I start to have problems with speech because I'm getting tired. So I think this video is really, really long. So, okay, so what I need to do before I get to this organized point with neatly organized milestones and deliverables, just return back to the beginning. At the beginning, you just come with some kind of chaos, which you need to organize in the frame of situation you are in the moment, based on the funding authority and the networks and resources you have available. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you always need to keep in mind that you plan your project with lack of information. That's the reality. And you plan it for uncertainty. So try to be as specific as possible, but keep for yourself also some kind of flexibility for the future, because now you think something about the situation and the situation might be entirely different. So this is a real life example, me working on a really, really big project, which I have never done before. And there was lots of things which I did for the first time. So I started to be lost a bit, but without kind of collecting information and analyzing the situation I was in. And by giving the certain concepts really realistic meaning, I couldn't move myself further, because here I was supposed to, plan some big strategy with absolutely no idea how much money they would like to spend. Their idea was, okay, tell us how much money you want and we will give you that much amount of money. But I know, well, word doesn't work like this. So yeah, I just thought, okay, now I'm being said that I might get anything I ask for, but this is not realistic. So you always need to create something realistic. So I really got stuck at certain moments. And what helped me was, again, to read a lot, to analyze the problem as much as I could, and start to express the thoughts behind this all. And so I started to create these stickers with idea that were related to the problem. And then I started to organize these thoughts. And really, once I got the whole concept out of my head, and I accepted certain situations, and again, related to project management triangle. So I had some idea about quality, but if you have uncertainty when it comes to resources. So you just have to be really careful, because it might also be that there won't be any resources at all available in extreme situations. So I also, you know, to create the boundaries for my thinking, I had to consider also this situation: no money at all, no resources. So by creating these limits, suddenly it all started to fit into kind of logic, and I was really able to successfully deliver what I was asked to deliver, and we got well, what we wanted to get. I mean, the institution, the organization that asked me to work on this project, then achieve what they wanted to achieve with what I planned for them, which was wonderful. So to summarize it, so at the beginning, we really need to brainstorm everything. And once we really think it all over, just remember that case example when I mentioned that a client of mine who was able to write his project within 2 weeks, but just because he already brainstormed before, he already talked to people around him, he already talked to the lab that would host him, he knew everything about the lab because he was there a couple of times before. So he was really prepared. So once you get into the moment when you can plan your strategy to implement something, you already are really efficient in organizing your thoughts according to some kind of limits, in this case, being given by the funding authority. And then you come out with a really good plan, organized plan. So again, I return to this puzzle. This is our objective: to have a vision, split the vision into smaller pieces, so that by working on these smaller pieces, we will at the end get our vision realized. Wow. So this is visually, again, comparing the puzzle with work breakdown structure. So when I look at this structure next time in your project, you should know that everyone who understands this looks at the structure and see it as a puzzle that all together must fit in order to get you to this high level of what you want to do, what you want to achieve. So, and the last concept that we should talk about is a risk. So any uncertainty is a risk. And well, you might remember that I told you a couple of moments ago that you are going to plan your project in uncertain environment. So it is risky, of course, but when you are asked to talk about risks, just talk about risks which you already kind of considered before, and they are so significant that you really have to somehow address them. So don't mention every single risk, there will be a lot of them, but just pick the most important one. So for example, again, a real life example. So in one of my projects, we intended to realize lots of trainings, but because we were not from a university, and these trainings were for postdocs or doctoral students from across the Czech Republic. So the risk was that we didn't have any direct contact with our target group. So we couldn't give someone an order to go for a training because just we know that you will, because we knew that it would be useful to go to this training. So we addressed this. This is the risk, and we said, okay, we are aware of it, and this is the reason why we included this strong communication process in our project, so that we are really closely connected with other universities and people in these universities who have contacts, direct contact with our target group. And again, it's words put on paper, but now it comes to the complexity of your project proposal. So if people, your evaluators, see that you already did this before, that's one thing, and it worked. So second thing is if you already had previous collaborations with those universities, so obviously you already have your network of contacts. So that tells me as an evaluator that the strategy you took in order to eliminate risks, of course they will be there always, but you already included in your processes something to avoid them, to address these risks. So this is the part of the game when we talk about risks. And because this video has already been really long, so I'm not going to talk too much about risks anymore, because otherwise you won't remember anything from this. And yeah, by this, we got to the end of my first training, which I want to share on YouTube. And I would like to end up by the fact that you mustn't forget about something which I kept on mentioning during the training all the time, is that this is the theory of project management. These are the concepts I try to explain you that the project management works with. But when it comes to grant agencies, they sometimes use different words for these concepts. So this is the reason why it's so important to understand what is the aim, what is the objective, what are the roles and functions of these concepts in your project. And then it doesn't mind if I will call my objectives as a funding agency Zebra and aims octopus, whatever. You don't mind. You just take it as a brand for something, as a sound, as a grouping of words that represent the concept. So then just unify your language with the language of funding authority. You just don't mind anymore whether you think they use it in the wrong way or not. Just use it their way, but you know what they talk about and what kind of functions these words will have in your project solution. Okay, so this is it. And this is one of the crucial things you need to know to be able to write good project proposals. So if you, I can't manage that you manage, I can't imagine that you manage to listen to me all the time. So I apologize to those of you who managed to stay with me and listen with probably breaks. I didn't have breaks. And I think it will be for future, it will be much better if I create really training for online that I'm going to split into shorter periods, shorter topics, just like you normally do it in all platforms which provide trainings. But well, with YouTube, it's just one video. So I did this first one more as a lecture or as a webinar, so it's a monologue. And I think for the future, I will definitely make something better on project management in project proposal writing, and probably go more into details of project management. But as I said at the beginning in my introduction, if I was waiting till I prepare a product like this, there will be nothing. So I thought, okay, something is ready. Let's use what we have at the moment. Even if it's not perfect, it's better to share at least something to start to move further. So this was the objective. You see that I look like exhausted. I feel a bit exhausted by the end of it, but I hope for those of you who are newcomers and who would like to learn something about project management in project writing, it will be helpful. So please don't judge me too harshly. It's always a challenge to go online, particularly for those of us who are not that happy with cameras and objectives. But if you want to achieve something, sometimes you need to do compromise and learn new things. So anyway, thank you very much for your attention and for your generosity with all my mistakes and with mistakes in my English. And I hope, just like always, we improve with every single video. So I hope after a 100th video, it will be perfect. So thank you very much for attention. Well, it seems like there's a bit of sun still shining outside. And that's all from me for today. I only hope everything was recorded, because the idea that I'm going to record this again seems to be a little bit nightmarish at the moment. So, well, anyway, thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to stop recording and see you later in some of the videos we are now going to work on. And there are much more ideas already running around us. So very soon, more interviews with amazing people who are going to share their experiences with them, with their experiences with you. Sorry for mistakes, really hard. Thank you and bye.